Hi all, so this is the second episode of Danganronpa Deep Dive. I'm sorry, but this one's pre-recorded, so in the last video I told you to give me some suggestions, but I really wanted to make this one, and I think this will be my last pre-recorded-ish video for a while, so this is episode 2, which I've decided to do on the beta version of Danganronpa known as Distrust. Unlike the last Dangan deep dive about Hope's Peak Academy, where literally every other word uttered by every character is Hope's Peak Academy, this one has a little less information, so I only have 2 sections, and the video won't be very long overall. But uh, so let's talk about the game that was never released and the inspiration for Danganronpa called Distrust. Section 1, which is game mechanics. Unlike Danganronpa, Distrust was meant to be a choose your own adventure / path kind of game instead of the follow the storyline game that it now is. Depending on what you did, would result in different blackened and different deaths, as well as different survivors. We know for the first case that the deaths of Junko and Kyoko were ones that could happen, as well as the executions of Leon and Junko, although other than those 2 deaths and blackened, the rest is unknown about who else could have died and shit like that. And presumably depending on who died would also give you your side character, because if Kyoko dies, then in section 2, characters. Some characters we do actually have confirmed names for in the Distrust beta trailer thingy. I don't know what to call it, and here they are. I read them and then I found some online. So there's Yuji Ando, who became Hifumi Yamada. There's S. Rudenberg and Yasuhiro Isugai, aka Celeste, and Taiko Yasuhiro. There's Kazuo Matsuzaki, aka Leon. There's Gyaru Kirigiri, which I know means girl. That's Kyoko. There's Shujinko, which is Makoto, and I believe it just means protagonist. There's Kiyotaka Ishiru, which is Kiyotaka, and Kazuo Kurosaki, Mondo. The other students being Aoyasa Hina, Byakuya Togami, Sayaka Maizuno, Toko Fukawa, Genocide Jack, Yasuhiro Hagakure, Chihiro Fujisaki, Junko Enoshima, and Mukuro Ikusaba either didn't have a name chosen at the time when they canceled Distrust, or their names simply stayed the same. I also forgot Sakura Ogami. She also didn't have a name. I don't know why I forgot her. I do believe, though, they have referred to her as Sakura when talking about Distrust, although I could be imagining that. And we don't really know if Genocide Jack was planned from the start as a character who would appear in Distrust. I feel like she really wouldn't be, because, the thing is with Distrust, depending on what route you would take, you wouldn't find some things about certain characters. For example, if Celeste was the first blackened or in this case, S. Rudenberg was the first blackened and whatever Toko's name was the first victim, you wouldn't ever find out about Celeste's name, aka Yasuhiro Isugai, and you wouldn't find about Genocide Jack if she was planned, because they're gone. You wouldn't find out about them unless they revealed that within the case, which wouldn't really make any sense personally. And I do also understand why they did not want to do Distrust, because I know lots of the fans would really like it, but think about this. You have to think about every single ending. Because, when the first game, let's say that the first victim is Kirigiri. Well, now there's 14 other people, depending on what route you have, just for Kirigiri alone. I say 14 because Kirigiri herself probably wouldn't be the killer in the first case, and Makoto also can't be the killer because that would be very weird for the first game or the only game in the franchise. So now imagine that times 15. That is why they could not make Distrust, because technically, yes, chapter 1 would have the most amount of variation, if that makes sense, because it includes everybody. And I don't know how to talk about this, but we have seen most of the students, but I don't know if Mukuro was confirmed to be a student either, or if Junko was a standalone character. So, because of course these characters did change. Some things about them didn't change, obviously. Kiyotaka's name stayed Kiyotaka. Kirigiri's last name stayed Kirigiri. Taiko Yasuhiro and Yasuhiro Isugai both include the name Yasuhiro. Celestia Ludenberg's name in this was S. Rudenberg. Her name in the official Japanese is Celestia Rudenberg. So they've obviously kept some things the same, but then they've changed entire character names Yuji Ando and Kazuo Matsuzaki and Kazuo Kurosaki. I know I'm not saying Makoto's name, but I'm pretty sure that was just a placeholder name considering it means protagonist. Some of them, Yuji Ando, Yasuhiro Isugai, Kazuo Matsuzaki, Kiyotake Ishiru and Kazuo Kurosaki seem like they would have been the actual names of the characters, whereas Gyaru Kirigiri and Shujinko, I believe, which is girl Kirigiri and protagonist respectively, or gal Kirigiri, I believe those would have been placeholder names. And like I said, we don't know if Mukuro Ikusaba, the 16th student who lays hidden somewhere within the school. Mukuro Ikusaba, the 16th student who lay somewhere hidden within the school, the one they call the Ultimate Despair, watch out for her, or Genocide Jack. We do not know if those two characters were planned characters, as we've seen everyone else except for them. Which they could have been added later in to make the plot, like, for Mukuro especially, make the plot kind of more interesting, because they needed a set mastermind, but, like, I don't really know. Distrust really kind of felt like a game that didn't really need a face behind the mastermind, if that makes sense. Whereas I feel like Danganronpa, you kind of do need a face behind the mastermind. Like, Distrust felt like it would have been a standalone game, if that makes sense. I don't know any of this. This is just my theorization, but I feel like if they did go ahead with Distrust, Mukuro probably wouldn't have been a character because they wouldn't have needed her, if that makes sense. Because let's say this was the Distrust development team. Personally, it would make more sense if the mastermind was like an organization and the world was normal and these students specifically were just forced to kill each other. Similar to like V3, if that makes sense, but not a reality TV show. Instead, it was just being broadcasted. Kind of like how it actually was. But like, if that makes sense, because I feel like that would be better for Distrust, if that makes sense. Like just the overall theme of the game, I feel like it really doesn't need a face to its mastermind, whereas Danganronpa does, if that makes sense. Anyways, that's all of this is my personal theorization. Like, the beta names of Makoto and Kyoko, because they aren't real Japanese names, whereas the other characters did have Japanese names. I don't know if the other characters who didn't have original names, if they actually did and no one's just managed to find them, or if they kept their names, or if they were nameless. We don't know if Genocide Jack or Mukuro Ikusaba were planned characters in Distrust. There's a lot we don't know about Distrust. Hell, the game was even gonna fucking use guns, I'm pretty sure, because there's like this one art of Sayaka and Leon with guns, or Sayaka and Kazuo Matsuzaki with guns. And if you couldn't tell, since Leon is the only person within Distrust who has an execution that actually uses that execution, because the other student being Junko doesn't, she uses the ultimate punishment instead of her like guillotine one. That explains as to why Leon's execution within the canon Danganronpa is a little bit more darker than everyone else, because Distrust originally was meant to be a more darker game, if that makes sense. And they kind of just took in like Leon's execution, but then at the same time, like all the other first game executions, with maybe the exception of the burning of the Versailles Witch, kind of fall into like the haha funny ones that like Super Danganronpa 2 does for some reason. That's why I think that Mondo's execution especially would fit better in Super Danganronpa 2, and that Peko Peko Yama's execution would fit better in Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc, because let's not deny it, Mondo's is more haha funny and Peko's is more serious, and in Danganronpa 1, all the other executions are all like these serious things, and in Danganronpa 2, they're all like the haha funny executions, or in the case of Mikon, it's kind of gross and disturbing. Anyways, I hope you could enjoy this shorter episode of Danganronpa Deep Dive. I didn't have a lot of material to actually work on, like I said again, unlike Hope's Peak Academy. So now if you want to, you can leave your suggestions for other Dangan Deep Dives in the comment section. Just let it be known that I will not be covering Distrust or Hope's Peak Academy, as I just covered Distrust in this one, and Hope's Peak Academy was my first video on Dangan Deep Dive, so anything else is welcome. If you remember my previous rules, I basically said you can choose a location, a group of people. For example, a location could be like, I don't know, I think I can really cover the only location, but like, or like a group of people would include like the Despairs or the Future Foundation, or Future Foundation as it's correctly called. Or you could do me, or like it could be like a Celestia Ludenberg motive. Why did she fall for this? Not like an actual like Celestia Ludenberg as a character, but more like what made Celestia Ludenberg specifically want to kill these people this time, and how I personally think she could have gotten away with it. Sorry, someone texted me. Anyways, like I said, suggest something like that if you want to see whatever you want to see suggested, as long as it isn't basically just a character analysis. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but I say character analysis is like everything about the character. But I feel like Celestia Ludenberg, like motive or like something like that, wouldn't really be everything about Celestia Ludenberg, or like Danganronpa deep dive. Why I think I don't really know why I think that Korekiyo and Celeste are the best killers would be a Danganronpa deep dive episode. But if you want it to be, I will. Um, Depending on if I agree with your opinion or not, if that makes sense. Like, if someone suggests a Dongman deep dive on why they personally think XYZ is a really deep character, or why they think XYZ is a good murderer, and I don't personally agree with it, I'll say that it was suggested by you, even if and I'll say, like, I don't agree with it. Like, let's say someone says Kokichi was really good, I'd probably still make the episode, but I wouldn't agree, if that makes sense, because Kokichi's the worst written character, in my opinion, in all of Danganronpa, because he has literally nothing that makes him human. So, but, like, I don't know, if it was, like, why I think Hirumi Tojo, blah, 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 Dangan Deep Dive or something like that, then I might do it. You can technically, in theory, include like a Dangan deep dive of like the anime in general if you really want to, I guess. Like, I'm not gonna count the games though, as one, I haven't played Ultra Despair Girls yet, so I can't do a Dangan deep dive on that. Trigger Happy Havoc, I haven't played that in like a year, and I forget stuff like that happened last week, so amazing memory. Super Danganronpa 2, I've also a year ago I played it, and then I'm like currently just starting V3. Beforehand I like watched all the trials, forgot them, and then now I have V3. So the only trial I somewhat remember is the final one, and I'm not going to do a deep dive on that. If you want to do like a deep dive of the ending of V3, I'm personally okay with that, because that is one thing I remember about V3. Not that much about it though, but I could possibly do an ending, like Dangan deep dive, ending of V3, something, blah, blah, blah. Basically, whatever you want to see. If it's like, if you want to see me talk about a Dangan deep dive about Celestia's motives, if you want to see a Dangan deep dive about why, personally, to me, Celeste and Korekiyo are the most realistic killers and my two favorites. If you want to see a Dangan deep dive about the Remnants of Despair, if you want to see a Dangan deep dive about Future Foundation, if you want to see a Dangan deep dive about what I just mentioned beforehand, whatever it was, sorry, I forgot already. See, suggest them. As long, literally the only two requirements, or three requirements I guess, would be, one, I can't have previously done it, so like I said, Distrust and Hope's Peak Academy are out of the way because I've just done them. Two, it has to, like, it can't be a character analysis, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not going to analyze the entire character. I might analyze them during, like, let's say Celestia one, I would analyze her in chapter 3 and talk about like her goals and motives and shit like that, but not talk about like her backstory and stuff, if that makes sense. And the third one, I guess, is like, it can't be an opinion, if that makes sense. Like, I can talk about why I think Celestia and Korekiyo are the best Blackened. I know that's an opinion of mine, but like, personally they felt the most realistic, and yet again, that is an opinion. I don't know how to really say it, but like, it can be like, I think Kokichi is a good character, Dangan deep dive, because like, I don't know how to describe it, but like, one, I don't agree with that, and two, like, that would just be a character analysis. It can't be like I think XYZ is a very deep character, I want that to be the analysis. For example, I do think that Celestia and Korekiyo are deep characters, but their Dangan deep dive, if I did theirs together, it wouldn't be just me saying, I think they're very deep characters. It would be like me actually going into them personally. That sounds a little weird. Sorry. But like, if you understand what I mean. Anyways, I know this video is longer than it needs to be. Bye. I hope you all have a good week. Or month or year, whatever. Bye.